Aloha Manga Club. Today, you and I are going to be welcoming back Berserk into our happy, healthy lives, which after rereading chapter 1, not entirely sure if that's going to be happy or healthy anymore. So for those of you who do not know what Berserk is, this is a dark fantasy created in 1990 by Kentaru Miura. Hopefully I spelled that right because I sure as heck cannot pronounce that right. Now, this story focuses very highly around the journey of Guts to get revenge on the singular being who has wronged him in everything that he stands for. Honestly, this series is known for a few things. One, most memeably, it is known for its long, ridiculous hiatuses. It makes Hunter x Hunter look reasonable. The next two things that it's known for are just great artwork. I mean, this artwork is absolutely mind-boggling. I can see why it takes so long to make a chapter, but seriously, drop the artwork just a little bit, raise up the output. I don't want to be going Game of Thrones on this where we probably won't get the ending to the story before you die. And finally, it's characterization. And honestly, if I remember correctly, chapter 1 had some pretty amazing characterization. So, without further ado, let's dive into this, reread chapter 1 of Berserk, and I'll see you in a few seconds. Hopefully you enjoyed all 80 pages of chapter 1 from Berserk. Now, there are two things that I could talk about with this. I could either talk about the sex, drugs, and rock and roll that are very prevalent, or I could talk about the characterization. You know which one I'm going to do because it's my favorite thing to talk about. It's the characterization. So, first, let's talk about the two tentpole characters that were introduced. First, you have Guts, and then you have Puck. For the sake of this, I cannot remember if Puck is a guy or a girl. I'm going to assume that Puck is a guy to make it easier on myself. Now, these two characters, other than sharing the letter U in their names, are completely different. They are two different ends of a completely different spectrum. And I want to start off with Puck because I think that he is a good representation of the audience. He is the everyman. When we were first introduced to Puck, he is tied up, hands bound, having knives thrown at him. You know, he seems like he's down on his luck. He's tortured a lot. He's going to be beaten up quite a bit. And, you know, that's something that really endears him to us as a character, and he makes a great foil for Guts because all that Puck really wants to do is help people. Even though he has been captured, even though he has knives being thrown at him, he doesn't want to hurt people. He doesn't want to kill people unless they absolutely need to, at least at this point in time in the story. And I think that he really shows the audience what we hope that the main character will be. Somebody who has aspirations, somebody who has goals. And if you're just getting into Berserk and you have never read it, you'll think, okay, yeah, Guts is just going to kind of be there. He's not going to be, you know, he might be the main character, but Puck is closer to the shonen protagonist that we're used to. Unfortunately, this is a seinen and not a shonen, so you know you're in for a treat. So let's talk about the main character, Guts. The foil to this Puck. Guts, in my opinion, is the very definition of an anti-hero. He's not a villain per se, but he does not do good for the sake of doing good. He does good in so much of the fact that it helps him achieve his goals. And the characterization that we see in these first 80 pages, so spoilers, really gives us a good idea of the character of Guts. So first off, let's talk about his drive. The only thing that we see expressed from Guts in these amazing drawings are his rage, his hatred, and his fear. These are his motivations, and they're very clearly introduced into the story at this moment in time, which is awesome because you start to really get a grasp of what Guts is all about. Now you might be thinking, Brian, if he has fear, then he's got to be a hero. He's doing great things. No, Guts doesn't see himself as the hero. He sees himself as somebody just wanting to have a means to an end. He is going out of his way to fight back against the worst of the worst, but people die all around him and he doesn't care. He has had to shut himself off emotionally from that because throughout his life he's been tortured. He has been sacrificed. He's been emotionally manipulated. He's been through so many things that it would be insane if he wasn't, cold, calloused, heartless. Sorry about that. We also see a few other things that are touched on later in the story. Very, very heavily touched on. So enough with the characterization. Like I said, it does a good job of introducing this fear, anger, this rage, this hatred in Guts. It gives a good foil in him with Puck. But it also gives you a little bit of past history into Guts' life. When Puck or anybody tries to touch Guts, he responds by freaking out. And that is because he is suffering from trigger warnings, everybody. There you go, that's your warning. He had been sexually assaulted as a child by somebody that he trusted. He saw his, basically the love of his life, be brutally assaulted. Brutally is under describing it. Just, it was bad by somebody that he considered his best friend in a pool of blood while the rest of his friends were dying, being eaten, killed around him. He sees physical contact as something very negative because every single time that it has happened, he has gotten hurt, or somebody around him that he has cared for has gotten hurt. So Guts builds this wall around him, and honestly, for a manga, for a story from 1990, it does a very, very good job of touching on what victims can feel like. And I think for me, Chapter 1 of Berserk really touches on the story of a victim. You know, Guts isn't the hero of the story. Not because he doesn't want to be, but because he doesn't see himself as the hero. He sees himself as just a creature, much like the demons that he is fighting. Something broken, something unholy, something dirty and filthy and unwhole. And honestly, thinking about it right now after rereading the chapter, the author does such a good job of bringing this to light. And once you really start to break down and examine it, it's a story of redemption. It's a story about going from seeing yourself as broken, seeing yourself as impure, and trying to cleanse yourself, trying to make the wrongs that you created right, and trying to make yourself better at the same time. If you haven't read Berserk, I highly, highly recommend it because it'll change your life. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to do what you're supposed to do. And for everyone new and old, welcome and welcome back. It's your boy Lohali, signing out.